Hello, good morning. Our first issue is reshuffling of cabinet. Recently, at the central level, cabinet has been reshuffled. New ministers have been appointed. Some of the old ministers they have been shifted to other posts. Now, in this context, we have to understand it from the polity static point of view. That is, ministers are appointed by whom? Ministers are appointed by the President of India, but on the recommendations of Prime Minister. Prime Minister chooses his Council of Ministers and oath is administered by the President of India. Minister can resign by submitting the resignation to President of India. Though these things look very simple, when it is asked as a prelims question, we might get confused. Let's say ministers submit their resignation by giving resignation letter to Prime Minister. Let's say if that statement is given, sometimes we might think it right. We have to remember here President of India appoints the minister on the recommendation of Prime Minister. Oath is administered by the President of India. Minister can submit his resignation to President of India. Next issue is Pegasus Spread. Pegasus is a malware. Recently, it is reported by Forensic Architecture, Amnesty International, and Citizen Lab that there's an online database that is prepared by these three organizations on Pegasus affected areas and Pegasus affected individuals. Pegasus is a malware which is introduced into the systems, phones, laptops, tabs, anywhere, which is introduced into the systems without the knowledge of the person. So it's a malware that monitors the data, that inserts various files without the knowledge of the individuals. Recently, these organizations they said that last year itself this has submitted, this particular Amnesty International Citizen Lab said that some of the people who were arrested under Bhima Koregaon case, this particular malware has been used against them. That was the thing, but then it was not proved. Again, these agencies are saying that this malware was used to target lawyers, rights activists in India. In this context, NIA, which is investigating this particular case, has to take this also into account. This digital threat and cyber threat, this has to be taken into account. Next issue is Cutdown in India's GDP forecast. Recently, Fitch rating agency, Fitch is a rating agency. So our credit rating agency, Fitch rating, this has cut down India's real GDP growth in 2021 and 22 to 10% from earlier 12.8%. Why? Why? Because it said that Fitch is a rating agency. It said that slow recovery is there. Bank crisis. Banks have given the loans. They are turning slowly into NPAs. So bank crisis is there. MSMEs they are facing problem in the second phase. Though there was not a national lockdown, localized lockdowns were there. That has impacted the economy as similar to last year's national lockdown. That's why this has reduced the India's rating. What happens if it reduces India's rating? Investments comes down. So that's why rating agencies and their ratings are considered important. Rating agencies in India are regulated under this organization called SEBI, Securities Exchange Board of India. Next issue is indemnity clause and USA's vaccine donation. USA under this framework, COVID-19 Global Response and Recovery Framework, which was promised under G7 commitment, USA said we will donate the vaccines. Already certain countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, they are getting vaccines from USA. Overall, 80 million doses of vaccines are said to be donated by USA. But to India, it might get delayed. Why? There is a clause called indemnity clause. Indemnity clause means exemption from the legal liability. That means there are many companies which are producing vaccines in USA. They are asking for this indemnity clause, exemption from the legal liability. But in India also we have other companies which are manufacturing vaccines like Serum Institute of India, Bharat Biotech, and we have Sputnik V also. They also will ask about indemnity clause. That means they are not responsible. Let's say if there is any supply chain issues, they are not responsible. So that kind of indemnity clause, in granting that we are thinking and waiting. That's why it is getting delayed. Next issue, let's come to the editorials. Today we have very few articles, right? Now, Taliban's and bloodshed. Taliban, in 1996, they have taken over the Afghanistan in a violent way. 1996. They have ruled for 4 years after that. In 2001, when Twin Towers were attacked in USA, 9 by 11 attacks, USA has invaded Afghanistan. After that, they lost the control. Now, again, Taliban's are gaining major power in Afghanistan. When they were ruling from 1996 to 2000, many rights violations, especially women right violation, was there. It was a clear bloodshed. Now that has to be reduced. USA is abdicating from its responsibility. USA invaded Afghanistan. Now 20 years after that, there is no stability. Still extremism is there. In this context, USA is leaving. By September, it will leave completely. Already from May 1, it started major pullover. In this context, Taliban are gaining more and more areas in the north provinces. They are more strong in south and southeastern side. But now slowly they are getting control over northern provinces where Afghanistan government has the major power. Now Afghan soldiers, troops, they are leaving the country also and they are retreating. This is happening. In this context, regional powers like China, Pakistan, India, Iran, Russia, and major power like USA, they all have to take the responsibility in maintaining the regional stability. Next issue is judiciary and slow justice. This article is regarding Stan Swami's death. He, at the age of 80 years, he was arrested, and bail was not granted to him. In this particular context, it is said that, see, judiciary as the protector of the rights of the citizen should take the responsibility. He was over 80 years age and many medical complications were there. Then also bail was not granted. Even medical bail was not granted. In this context, how the future sees this particular case? In the last few years, judiciary and its activism has reduced. That's the primary point that this article made, and this article was written by a former Delhi Chief Justice. We have to consider this a little seriously. The next issue is World Population Day. World Population Day is celebrated every year on 11th July. In this context, this year's theme is on rights and choices. Rights and choices to whom? To women. Women's rights and choices in sexual reproduction is necessary. In India, if we take TFR, total fertility rate and its stability, we want to achieve it by 2021. It might get delayed, maybe by 2-3 years, but we are going to achieve the total fertility rate and its stability at 2.1%. In this context, more than half of the population in India is below the age of 30. That means young population is there. This is the demographic window. In this context, if we provide the rights and choices to the women in their sexual reproduction rights, that augurs well, that provides well. But what it requires, we have child marriages, we have less reproductive choices in terms of pregnancy and abortion. In this context, new social norms in this direction needs to be brought in. That requires collective action from individuals to governments to NGOs. Next issue is migrant workers and their welfare. So recently, Supreme Court has given directions with regard to implementation of One Nation, One Ration Card under National Food Security Act, and it also mandated to go for a database for organized sector workers. It has discussed about cash transfers, but it has not given any guidelines on that. These are the two areas in which Supreme Court has given directions. In this context, what we have to understand is why and how migrant workers are important, why their rights are important, how they can be protected, voting rights, cultural rights. We have to look at this concept comprehensively. You can read this from your social issues. Our final issue is Haryana's misplaced priorities. Haryana is at the bottom top three states in unemployment and crime, low in health and education. Even industrial and economic growth is slowing down. So in this context, Niti Aayog's report on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, have shown that there needs a lot of improvement. See, in general, if we consider India's growth story, some states like Punjab and Haryana, they have high per capita income. States like Kerala, Himachal Pradesh, though they have moderate per capita income, they have more human outcomes or human welfare outcomes like in education, health, sanitation, etc. But in this context, what we can see is slowly even that economic outcomes or economic strengths are reducing because of the lack or less social indicators. Health and education are important. Slowly, as these two are reducing, industrial and economic outcomes are also reducing. In this context, this can be used as a case study. How we can prioritize our growth. What is our human development? How human development should be prioritized over mere economic growth. For that, you can write Haryana's case study. These are today's articles. All the very best. Thank you very much.